Welcome to Moon Me, an astrology podcast where we explore astrology, tarot, psychology, and astrocartography. With your hosts, Roxy and Izzy, we dive into the connection between the stars and the self. Hello and welcome to Moon Me, an astrology podcast. I'm Roxy.
And I'm Izzy.
And today is part two of our planet episodes, where we will be talking about the outer planets, starting with Saturn and then talking about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Stay tuned towards the end because we'll also be talking about major planetary transits that we're all experiencing right now. And of course, if you want to go back and listen to part one, where we'll talk more about the personal planets. So, what comes to mind, Izzy, when you think about Saturn? Maybe you can kick us off.
A lot of things, honestly, come to mind when thinking about Saturn. Obviously it has a bit of a negative association in astrology, especially like in the pop astrology world. Um, but what it really is about, in my opinion, is it's about discipline. It's about the hard lessons that like life is trying to teach us throughout our lives, not just in our youth, but throughout our lives, and kind of self mastery, I would say. Um, Kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in a certain way. Um, that's what it means to me. And I think oftentimes, yeah, like where we see Saturn in the chart shows where a person may, not that they struggle necessarily, but where they may not be as like apt towards something as maybe other people, or maybe as they are at other things, if that
Mm.
makes sense. They may not, some an area of life where they may have a bit more difficulty in terms of mastering it. It requires more work because Saturn is it's about work, it's about discipline, it's about structure. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for sure where Saturn is in your chart, as well as, the sign it's in, the modality and the element, I think Saturn is very much about where we need to incite or invite more discipline into our lives, into our activities, wherever it is in the chart. And with that discipline, you can learn some great lessons that are important in this lifetime. It's also, I think, a place where we can find, as you said, long-term benefit. But it comes with work. So usually it's a place where we need to, at first,
And
build up
work
the
and
foundation.
time.
Yes, yes. Because
Yeah.
of the
Work, and I would
longevity
say
of the
time.
benefit.
It's
Yeah, yeah, because the benefit is so profound in our lifetime. It does take hard work. It's that whole thing of, you know, nothing good comes without a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of discipline. Consistency, I think, is also a key term that I would associate with Saturn. But something that is not often spoken as much about is boundaries and karma. I think, Saturn really rules over the places where we need more of those, but also, structural things. As we know, it rules, like Capricorn, for example, ruled by Saturn, rules the bones in the body. It's like the structural bones of our lives, what we're trying to achieve, and then quite physically, the structure of our bodies and the world around us, I would say. It's very earthy, I would say as well. Um, but yeah, as you said, a lot of mastery in this area of your life. What would you say about, for example, if you find your Saturn in an earth modality versus like an air or water?
I think with Saturn in general, I guess the way I look at it, maybe I don't, not that I don't pay attention to the elements and the modalities, but I think whatever sign it's placed in, the person, the native, they tend to have like a bit of difficulty, I think, accessing the themes associated with that sign, right?
Mm,
So, like, you get Saturn in Taurus, for example. In Taurus, so the stereotypical themes are like of, luxury and physical pleasures and sensory pleasures and um like a slow living and all those nice things, materialism. And with Saturn in Taurus, it would be like maybe the person has a bit of a difficult relationship with those themes. Maybe they can't allow themselves to relax, or to feel grounded or to feel, fulfilled financially. Um, that's how I interpret it personally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of links to what you were saying earlier. It's like a part of our lives and our parts of ourselves that we need to rule, that we need to master. So, if it's in an air sign, for example, we might need to master our own minds and our thoughts and our ideas. Earth, we might need to get more realistic, more grounded. Water, we might need to rule over some of our emotions, master some of those emotions, and use that, transmute
Get
that
it,
into
get in
something
touch, get
successful.
in touch with the emotional side of life and of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. And I think the same applies to the houses, right? So we both have Saturn in the second house. A big part of that, I think, is ruling or mastering the way we work with money, the way we spend our money, the way we budget, our own self-worth. And the same could be applied, for example, with Saturn in the fifth house. You need to figure out how to access your own pleasure, how to have fun, how to, in some ways, get more creative, right? And it sounds kind of contradictory for something like Saturn in the fifth house. Fifth house rules pleasure and fun. And Saturn is there to teach us how to enjoy that
How
more.
to like let loose a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Yeah.
at times, how to find balance in those areas as well.
Yeah, and I think that you make a really good point with when you refer to the houses because I think some people like when they see their chart, they see where Saturn is and they panic. They get stressed out. Like they're like, "Oh my God, I have Saturn in the 11th house. Like I'm never gonna have friends or I'm never gonna have community." And it doesn't mean that you can't have those things. It just means that there's certain lessons to be learned and certain, even I hate to say it, but maybe adjustments to be made to get there. It just takes a little bit longer to get there.
Hmm.
It's like riding a bike, right? Like the training wheels, the bicycle.
But then once you're there, you reap rewards greater than maybe others would in those areas of your life.
Yeah, because you have so much at that point, you have so much knowledge and experience around that theme that you really know it, you master it, like we said.
Mm.
You know it better than anybody else almost.
Yeah. And I think the same, I think it's also useful to look at, the modalities. If you think about like a fixed Saturn, like maybe what we have, Aquarius Saturn, right? I think it has a lot to do with learning how to endure, how to keep going, to find consistency. Same with,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like we both have like, you have a lot of mutable, and fixed. I also have some mutable, and that makes it tough.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. And I would say the same about like cardinal. So if you're in a cardinal sign like Cancer or Capricorn, Saturn, you might need to learn how to take the lead sometimes, how to be the forefront of something, you know?
Or just to get something off the ground.
Right. Get it going.
Get it started, because if you don't get it started, it will never come to fruition.
Hmm.
And then maybe with the mutable signs, it's maybe a bit, I don't want to say the opposite of the fixed, but maybe, yeah, learning to be a bit more flexible, a bit more nuanced in the thinking and the approach to life
Hmm.
with a
Yeah.
mutable Saturn.
Yeah, I think with Saturn, we also can't ignore the fact that there is this interpersonal karmic element to it. I think it has a lot to do with our self-worth and how we relate to others, depending on where it is in the chart as well. Obviously, more profoundly in like first house Saturn or seventh house Saturn, or maybe
Yeah.
even 10th house Saturn, right? But I think in general it is very karmic. It can dictate where, we need to repair or work on relationships with others. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially if it falls in those houses that really involve having to deal with the public. But honestly, when you really get to the when you really get to the nitty-gritty of it, in all the areas of life, we're going to be dealing with people in some capacity. You know, the sixth house, work and routine, right? The fifth house, dating, romance. There's no only, it's not only the 10th house that's so public facing. There's other houses in the chart that make that where you have to deal with other people.
Mm,
Um, and so, yeah, I would say that it could say a lot about how we relate or don't relate to others. Um, actually saw a post on Instagram, I think it was yesterday, about it was something titled like by this astrologer I follow that I really like. It was something titled like where you expect too much from others based on your Saturn sign. And it was pretty on point.
hmm.
And it's interesting because maybe it's not the first thing you think about when you think of Saturn, but it actually makes sense if you think about it in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. The structural integrity that exists within our relationships can be highlighted with Saturn depending on your chart, especially I think in association with other planets, like in conjunctions or aspects to Venus, for example. There could be a lot about those sort of social contracts that we have with others.
And even I feel like Saturn could reveal a lot about like the father figure
Mm,
and also the relationship to the family, specifically between you know, the father and the child, especially
mm.
if there is a father in the picture. But
Any
like
patriarchal caregiver, I think.
yeah,
Mm,
um it could really reveal a lot about that fatherly figure,
mm,
patriarchal figure in a person's life just by looking at the chart. Like I just had a client today and she had moon opposition Saturn and it was like that's often an indicator of like very conflicting parenting styles.
mm. Between mother and father with the
Yeah,
moon
and
in
that's
that side.
exactly what it was. And
Hmm.
I said that and she was like, "Wow, that's like really it's really what I went through."
Mm.
Um, so yeah, Saturn, even about the family and the structure of the family unit, quote unquote, it can reveal about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have a look at Saturn in your chart to see where you can invite more discipline and then move towards much more success in those areas of your life. Um, but yeah, as you said, the aspects as well, I think are important, particularly with Saturn. All right. So what would you say about Uranus? What comes to mind?
Uranus is an interesting one. I think it's
Mm,
very misunderstood.
mhm,
Um, to me, Uranus is where a person kind of stands out from the crowd,
mm,
where they're different, where they do things differently, where they're a bit more unique. Like, for example, like maybe Uranus in the second is going to be like a person that maybe got on the entrepreneur like bandwagon really early on, or self-employed, or maybe works in something a bit more alternative, not your standard like run-of-the-mill type of job or something, for example.
mhm,
Um, Uranus in the first house, that I think we both have that. I have that. Yeah. Um, I guess the we are just really unique and
mhm.
really different. And
Yay.
we get kind of picked out of a crowd easily for whatever reason. We are just different. It's like a whole part of our identity being different. It's
Mm,
where you're different. I think it's where you innovate and do things differently from most other people. Um, but also, like when I think of it in terms of a transit, it's like Uranus might be where like your life is gonna face some shit where it's transiting, sorry, might be where your life is gonna face some major changes and shakeups, unexpected events. Uh, yeah.
absolutely.
Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I would also say that, we use this word different because it's the best word to use, obviously, but I would also use the word other because I think different looks different for everyone, right? So it's really about being like outside or other,
Outcasted,
yeah,
outcasted.
wherever you are, right? So perhaps you're in a community or a smaller group of people that does things a certain way. You're most likely in that area going to do it a little bit, as you said, differently. An outsider connected with Aquarius is also, I think, a very good word associated with Uranus. I would also, and hear me out on this one, I would also associate Uranus with destruction. You know, the Tower card in tarot is ruled by Uranus, sorry, because it's this sense of shock and sudden change. And whereas Saturn to me feels like the structure, Uranus comes in and shows where there's lack of structure. So I really like, these two planets and how they relate to each other. And yeah, definitely the rebellious nature that comes with Uranus, the parts of your chart where you have Uranus is probably going to be where you rebel in some way. So if it's in the seventh house, you might have a unique or different approach to your relationships. If it's as we have it in the first house, you might want to experiment with your style a little bit differently. You might want to, or you might identify very closely with that outsider quality. There's this sense of rebellion, I think, wherever you see it in your chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
hmm where, for example, if you're looking at Uranus in a fixed sign like Aquarius or Taurus, it might be that you have a lot of resistance that you need to work through, that stubbornness quality. What would you say about that? Would you say that, like, where Uranus, in terms of modality and element, do you think that affects your personality and things that you might need to work on?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I would say, yeah. Um, like I guess it's kind of like, for example, let's say we have like um, Uranus in a sign like say Libra, for example. It's like maybe there's like a bit of like a weird relationship with harmony. It's
Mm,
like there's kind of they might actually thrive on imbalance rather than balance. It's really shaking up the themes of that sign.
mhm,
That's why Uranus doesn't necessarily do well in certain signs. Like for example, a lot of our generation we have Uranus in Capricorn, and I feel like Uranus is not the most comfortable in that sign, for example. Capricorn wants structure and Uranus wants like liberation. When we to talk about Uranus and Gemini, it might be like, liberation of the mind and the way we think and thinking really differently and alternatively. Um,
mm,
it manifests, I feel, really differently in each sign for sure and house.
mm. Yeah, I mean, certainly house will show you, like, personally or interpersonally, where you might want to make changes throughout your life as well. But like you said, Capricorn, for example, I think our generation is very focused on the structures or the structural problems within society and trying to do
That
that.
were like, yeah, that were established by the generations prior. That plus our Pluto and Scorpio being that part of that cohort, generational cohort, being part of the Pluto and Scorpio group. It's like we see the problems, we see the holes and the gaps of the foundations and structures that were laid out for us. And we're kind of actively working to just tear it down and build something else. But I guess people in the older generations may have the fear of like, well, is what they're building going to be better or is it going to
Mm,
be worse?
hmm
But it's like change is inevitable. So, you know,
And that's the thing. We just want it different because of that generational planet. So it's not necessarily going to be good or bad.
no.
I think Uranus transits are quite interesting because they are quite long as well. I feel like Uranus transits are really good at coming in wherever it is in your chart. It's mostly where it is in your chart in terms of the house, may bring some breakdowns, breakdown of things that aren't working. It might highlight areas that need changing. Um, and in a spark, the spark or this electricity coming into that area of your life, sparking that change or that desire for change.
Yeah, it's really like Uranus will like sweep the rug under your feet,
Mm,
like when you're not noticing. And it really, if you were ignoring something or if you were trying to avoid something, Uranus really makes it impossible to ignore and impossible to avoid.
mhm. More likely than not, I've noticed that it's impossible to avoid also because of the way it makes you feel inside. You know, Uranus is also associated with like electricity, the nervous system, any sort of interconnected lines. And I think you can almost feel the electricity that Uranus brings in whichever part of your chart. One example of this would be, it was transiting through our fifth house. I don't know how that related for you or how that manifested for you. But for me, it was very much bringing about a change in all the aspects associated with the fifth house: my pleasure, what I find enjoyable, how I express myself, my creative projects, and also my view on whether I want kids or not. How was it for you? I'm curious.
I mean, I think it maybe when it comes to like my what brings me pleasure, what brings me joy, especially the creative side, it was transiting our fifth house for a while, yes. I guess maybe mine was not as much of an outward manifestation as yours.
Hmm.
Um, but I definitely did, start, I want to say, kind of slowing down in life.
Mm.
Because I had this job for several years and it paid really well, but it was just every day the same shit. Like every day it was very mundane. And I feel like that Uranus transit in the fifth really got me out of that whole kind of routine that I was in. It got me out of it and I started doing more art. I started I feel like listening to different types of music. I started spending more time with friends. Yeah, like indirectly, I started doing a lot more things that bring me joy, as opposed to before, it was just like work and just gym. It was, there were a couple of years where I had a very boring life, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said
Started
about breaking
traveling
routine.
more. I started traveling more for when that Uranus transit started a lot. Um, Definitely a little bit more than I have been lately. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think breaking routines is also a big thing associated with Uranus transits, breaking the routines of whatever that house is associated with. I'm actually very curious to see as Uranus enters my sixth house in Gemini, what that does in my life, and yours as well. Because that is quite literally your daily routines, your
and it
work,
was it
your
was
health.
briefly there, and then
Mhm.
it went back into Taurus, and soon it will be back in the sixth house again.
Yeah, and I
We
think,
did get we did get a taste of it because
yeah,
you transition more of your work online. You were
exactly.
talking about this a couple months ago, so I think we even in that little window of time, we got a taste of it,
Hmm.
you
It was,
know?
yeah, it was quite impactful for me. But I feel like as it goes back into the house, so whoever's listening, this would be transiting one of your houses. It would have gone into your house, one of your houses gone back into the previous house and then back into that house again. And I think that the second time it goes, there's an even a different change. Whereas I feel like Saturn, it goes back and it gives you a taste, and then you continue with that. I feel like Uranus comes in, destructs a little bit, goes out, comes back, something totally new. Often associated, I think, with breakthroughs and building on that even more as it goes back into the house. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Uranus is cool. I have Uranus tattooed to my finger. I love Uranus. I love the energy of change. I'm a very Aquarius person as well, so it makes sense. Um, yeah, what about Neptune?
Oof, Neptune. Neptune is a tough one, I feel. I feel like I have a more difficult relationship when with Neptune in my chart.
I think
Um,
we all do. Neptune is so unattainable.
Neptune to me is very much, especially I focus a lot more on the house placement of Neptune.
Mhm.
Because I feel like it really you feel it in that house that it's in. Um, it tends to bring a bit of a lack of clarity in
Hmm.
that area of life. Um, a little bit of ambiguity, I like to say. Um, as well as deception and even disappointment.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think a big part of Neptune is learning to trust um your intuition and to kind of maybe connect more to your soul and to like the spiritual side of yourself when it comes to navigating that area of life. Um, in order to not have your judgment clouded because that's, I think, the higher octave of Neptune, right?
Mm.
Spirituality, consciousness, higher consciousness, metaphysical connection. The lower octave is like escapism, delusion, confusion, lack of clarity.
Mm.
Uh, so it's a tough one, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I like to think of Neptune as like imagination, right? So imagination is great. It can be great and it can be bad. It can be used as a source of escapism or it can be used as a source of creativity, creation, and manifestation. And I think that's the case very much with Neptune. It's how you use it. Because definitely, with imagination, there's this intense creative power, but it's never quite real. And I think wherever Neptune is in the chart, there's this haziness, this veil over what it is. There's always this sense of, I just don't know. I can
Yeah, like
see, I can feel
can't
that.
fully grasp it. Like
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So, I agree with you that where Neptune is in the chart can cause some of these things. So maybe we can just kind of go through the houses real quick, and talk about how that can manifest, starting with the first, because we
We
both
have
have,
this one. We
yeah,
both have this placement. Oh boy.
yeah. I think it's kind of cool because there's a dream-like
Aura.
appeal
An
to the,
aura to
yeah,
the
aura. Can be quite magnetic, similar to Pluto, but in a totally different way. There's something enchanting about it, but there can be difficulty in accessing the truth of how you come across, how you look. Um, in one sense, you might dress very whimsically or very beautifully, very dreamlike, but in the other sense, you might have difficulty accessing how you really look, right? Like body dysmorphia or, feeling like your face looks a different way. Sometimes dissociation or disembodiment can even happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Especially I feel like being that Neptune does rule photography, I
Mm.
think people like ourselves with Neptune in the first house, I think we have a bit of a weird relationship with photographs. It's like because it's all about Neptune has a lot to do with perception and projection. Um, it happens a lot that I think um there's a sense of also blurred boundaries because Neptune blurs boundaries and think there could be a lot of how could I explain it? Like energetic porosity
Mm.
with Neptune in the first house. Like very
Absorption.
we absorb other people's energy and other people's feelings and even thoughts and even what they're projecting onto us. Because I think Neptune in the first house receive a lot of projection, whether that is um, especially like from people who are interested in us in like a romantic way or a sexual way or, you know, stuff like that.
Mm.
So it could be, I think we have to do a lot of grounding and a lot of cleansing, energetic cleansing. I feel like every time I go on the sorry, not the subway, that's what we call it in New York, on the metro,
Hmm.
I like have to do like an Epsom salt bath sometimes. I'm just like, I feel so heavy. Why do I feel so energetically heavy? Does
Yeah.
that ever happen to you? I feel like it does.
Yeah, I think the problem as well is, like you said, there's an absorption, but then because of Neptune, the first house, it can be hard to know what's ours and what isn't ours. And I think that's when it becomes a problem because we think it's something we're feeling or something that's wrong with us. When in actual fact, Neptune is just kind of blurring the boundaries between us and other. Um, but moving on to like the second house, I think there can be this sense of creativity in the way that people make money. They might like weird or strange, whimsical things, it rules resources. But then, on the same sense, there might be a sense of delusion on how they spend their money, maybe overspending as well, or difficulty accessing budgeting and things like that.
Yeah, I think like there could be even sometimes a lack of clarity on how they could make money.
Hmm.
Um, on what kind of how could they make an income? Like there might be confusion around that, but I think when they develop like when they work with this placement, they could develop a sense of intuition and I think manifest money really easily being that it is immutable. It's associated with Pisces, which is mutable.
Yeah.
So there's like that kind of limitless potential, but they have to access that potential. It could be hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Third house, I guess, is great for our writers, great writers, creative writing specifically, a lot of imagination. They might be the kind of person that's sort of in their own world a lot of the time. Um, but yeah, at the same time, this can also be an escapism. There might be difficulty accessing our true belief system or what thoughts are ours and what aren't.
Yeah, there could be a lot of, I mean, we both have Pisces ruled third house, and I kind of identify with some of these themes. Maybe not as heavily, but I mean, I'm a
Me for
writer.
sure. I have Pisces Sun
Yeah.
and Mercury in my third house of Pisces.
Um, but yeah, Neptune here could be very imaginative, very creative, like wildly creative, um, very intuitive, very sensitive, even to the thoughts of others. But it could be very hard to feel mentally grounded with this placement.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You get carried away in like I think of it as the daydreamer placement,
Mm,
big time, big
yeah,
time.
yeah. And fourth house would be related to the home and the early childhood family. There might be a sense of not really knowing what's going on with our family members growing up, the sense of uncertainty in our caretakers. Maybe, home could have felt like an escape, but at the same time, maybe home could have felt like inaccessible, like you're not
Yeah,
really
I
knowing what's
think
going
this
on.
is I think this is a tough one. I feel like this often manifests in like um a person maybe being lied to about a lot of things relating to their family, like who their biological father is. And
Mm,
I've seen this with this placement. I feel like this is a real thing.
mm,
Mm, not knowing maybe who their biological parent is or being kind of, oh, I was adopted, but they didn't tell me until whatever age. Like it's giving a lot of that. It's giving a lot
mm.
of secrets and maybe lies
Mystery, yeah.
and mystery and deception in the childhood home.
Hmm.
Not
Related to
always,
family.
not always, but definitely a good amount of the times.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. What about fifth house?
Oh, I feel like these people are very, very, very creative. I feel like they're very creative. I call it the placement of like boundless creativity. Because like when you have Neptune in the fifth house, which is all about creation,
Mm,
Neptune has such a vast is like so much associated with like it's so associated with like having such a vast imagination. Um, but maybe they could find it a bit hard to like maybe focus on one creative outlet. Maybe they might have many creative outlets. There could be a bit of like a sense of being a bit all over the place with this placement. What do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, with those escapism tendencies associated with Neptune,
Yeah.
sometimes you might,
And the fifth house
eh,
being the house of vices as well.
yeah, exactly. You might sort of use your pleasures as an escapism sometimes. Not always healthy, not always good for you.
No, at all.
Sixth house?
Oof, Neptune in the sixth. Um, I think these people are the ones who need a lot of like freedom and flexibility in their routine.
Hmm.
Definitely. They need a lot of freedom. They need a lot of flexibility.
Flow.
Um, flow. I don't think these are the people that could be in a 9 to 5 in a cubicle. Um, they thrive in work that's more like purposeful, that's more creative, that's more them, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I think when I see Neptune in the sixth, in a chart.
Hmm. Yeah. Might have also like difficulty accessing healthy ways of living. There could be a lot of like bouncing back and forth between different health strategies, diets, things like that, and struggling to access what's good for themselves and what's good for their bodies. If that makes sense. Seventh house?
Oh yeah, this one I've actually worked with a lot of people who have this placement. Um, I think Neptune in the seventh is very much about, like, often it's about kind of being deceived and deluded at times in relationships and maybe seeing situations and things that aren't really there. Um, could often manifest as like certain situationships. I've seen this a lot with this placement.
Hmm. I wonder if you would agree when I say there is,
Mm.
especially in like seventh house, fifth house, there's this interesting sexuality with Neptune because I do associate Neptune with fantasy. So this could be, in a positive way, this could be quite fun. A person to be in a relationship with that connects with fantasy, is very much in touch with their fantasies. But on the other side, there could be a sense of fantasy about what the relationship is, and perhaps that could like sort of
Yeah, that's what
seep
I
into
meant.
delusion a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, yeah. I do know a few people actually with this placement, and there is this sense of, I want to say very romantic, right?
Hopeless
Making
romantic. It's
something,
the hopeless romantic potential situationship kind of placement. I hate to say it. I'm sorry. Love you
yeah,
guys.
yeah. I mean, it can be positive, but it does have that side. I think it's important to note. Um, what about the eighth house is a weird one. Neptune in the eighth house to me is just someone who feels boundless. I think there might be this difficulty when it comes to attachment and not being able to let go, in a sense, or not really being able to distinguish yourself from another in some way.
There's definitely some identity stuff going on
Yeah,
here, I
yeah.
think, and also like some energy, some difficult themes around like vulnerability, maybe not knowing how to be vulnerable. Um, Intimacy could be, I feel like, tough for these people, but yeah, close connections could be overwhelming, I think, for them at times.
Yeah, to maintain their identity in deep connection, I think.
I think they're also like very much influenced by their subconscious mind, their dreams. They might get a lot of like downloads, you know.
Hmm.
I think these
Yeah.
are people that have very strong intuition and even I would dare to say discernment.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas the ninth house, I feel like it has more to do with ideology. I think these might be the quiet geniuses as well, because it's someone who can really access large amounts of information in quite an interesting way, like higher
Wow,
learning.
yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Mm. But
Absolutely.
it can create confusion as well when you have that much access to that much information.
Yeah, it could be like it could manifest, I feel like, in like not knowing exactly what to study in
Mm.
going to university and just not knowing what to study because they see so many more possibilities than the average person.
Yeah. And
They
just being like,
see
mm,
they see a world of options. Where some people see a world of restrictions, of restriction, these people see like more a world of options, a
yeah,
plethora of possibilities.
and might even be drawn to all of them simultaneously, which can be quite difficult to deal with, I think, when you're trying to find a focus and a path in terms of ideology, belief, and education. I
I feel
mean, in
like this
terms
could
of
be a
travel,
really,
could be good.
yeah, adventure. I feel like these people like always have a strong sense of adventure,
Mm,
a desire to travel and learn a lot. I
hmm.
also think this could be a really good placement for an astrologer to have.
Mm. Yeah, that access to that
to the higher
information.
knowledge.
Yeah.
That realm is
Mm.
really high with this
I
placement.
would also associate this placement with someone who's rather idealistic.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
It might be similar to Pisces. It might be difficult when they encounter real life things that feel ugly or bad to them because they might have this idealistic view on what society could be and like what life could be and what connection is. And then when you sort of face them with the certain ugly truths, it can be quite difficult, I think, for this placement.
Yeah, absolutely.
10th house of career and public persona. What would you make of that?
Think there with this one, there's definitely some overlap with Neptune in the first. There might be some confusion or delusion about how they're perceived versus like how they really are. How they really are versus how they're perceived. There could be some confusion in terms of which career path to go on. There could be a bit of lack of clarity in that department.
Hmm.
Um, but there's always this feeling of like, maybe who am I, right, in the world? What's
Hmm.
my role? What am I here for with this placement?
Yeah, very much like career and public persona connected to vision and like a sense of what they can do or what they're creating in the world. Um, but yeah, I think with Neptune, this person, this placement could really find a lot of success in creative pursuits or things that seem kind of dreamlike and idealistic, you know? It's giving like people who want to make a change in the world and who lead with that and become known for that.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
agree.
Hmm. Whereas the 11th house, 11th house talking about community, I would connect Neptune in the 11th house to kind of whimsical communities, creative communities, friends.
Spiritual community, spiritual friend groups, more kind of shared bonds on those kind of topics.
Mm. Or even, dare I say, delusion, shared delusion.
Shared delusion or like maybe even potential disappointments in friend groups and communities, potential letdowns. Um, because Neptune, I feel when the veil is lifted, it could kind of hit you in the face.
Yeah, I think you
Not in the
think
best
your
way.
friends are a certain way. You might not always have access to the truth of your friendship groups and your connections, which I think can be said to, for like seventh house as well, right? You might not always have access to that truth. Um, Whereas 12th house, I think, is a deeply, I don't know, it's an interesting one because Neptune already rules parts that are difficult to access and to know, and the 12th
It's
house is
somewhat,
very
yeah,
much
it's
that as
partially
well.
associated with the 12th house
Mm.
as a planet, as and a house. Yeah. Um, I think it's a lot about like undoing, self-undoing, unlearning, learning to
Mm.
let go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same with Saturn in the 12th, but especially Neptune. Kind of learning to release control and trust is a big theme. The 12th house is always, it's the house of the metaphysical, the unseen, the things society wants to ignore. So it's like, I think Neptune in the 12th house also could make a person extremely empathetic towards
Mm-hmm.
those in need, very connected on a
Yeah.
deeper level.
Yeah, it's that sense of accessing all those weird, unknown informations and things out there in the world. And when it's in the 12th house, yeah, very empathetic because it's almost like you've lived all the lives, so you can really feel what people are going through, even quote unquote bad people or people who have done wrong things. Um, I think this placement, I think, would also have quite intense creative dreams, maybe lucid dreaming, or just like some really strange dreams.
Or even like astral, what is it, astral projection?
Yeah, yeah, stuff
I
like
could
that.
so see that with this placement.
Hmm. I also see this person maybe falling into traps. I feel like with Neptune, the 12th house, and the 12th house ruling like underground taboo institutions, I could see that this placement could maybe get someone in trouble in sense of in
Or
this
get themselves in trouble.
right in this yeah exactly
Then,
in the sense of yeah, just getting entrapped into spaces and things and people and then being wrong place, wrong time.
mm,
Um, things like that, I think can be an issue. But yeah.
can happen, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that little detour we took because I do think that Neptune is really important depending on which house it's in. Um, but yeah, I guess like it's really this balance between avoidance versus escapism versus creativity, creation, and dreams, right? Ideology.
Yeah. And like even like the like yeah, reality versus fantasy too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it's really important to look where Neptune is in your chart, what modality it is, what sign it's in,
What
and try
house?
your best to ground that energy. You know, like, I don't know how you deal with it, but my Neptune in my first house, activity, movement, working on plants, having my plants, watering them, all these methods of grounding my physical body have become super important to me. Grounding meditations, yoga, all of it. The list can go on. But wherever it is in your chart, I think working on grounding that energy can really help.
Yeah, definitely. And even I think like Neptune aspects could reveal a lot about us and our tendencies as well. Um,
Yeah.
it's tough to look at all the aspects and understand all of them, especially if you're just learning astrology or new to it. But like, some pages will give you an interpretation that's like pretty decent.
Hmm.
And it could explain the aspects with Neptune made to other planets in your chart. And those, I think it's important to know some of those.
Yeah. And I know we have spent quite a bit of time on Neptune, which I feel like it's very fitting. But I did want to say also that, I think one of the fundamental questions with Neptune is intuition versus illusion, right? I think that's something, wherever it is in your chart, is what you might struggle with. So, being in the first house, we might have this sense of like struggling, differentiating fear versus intuition, for example.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a big question is how do we differentiate the two? Do you have any answer for that? It's a really difficult question, though.
How do you differentiate fear versus intuition?
Illusion versus intuition, like what's real and what's not.
I mean, obviously, I think some people are more grounded in reality than others. That's the answer I'm gonna give.
Mm,
Um, but I think checking in with others. Um,
absolutely.
the problem is like I think our society in the Western world is so individualistic that I don't know, people they don't really necessarily value the opinions of others.
Mm,
And obviously you have to find a balance with that too, right? Like not just getting the answers from everybody else and caring so much about what they think, but also you can't only like rely on yourself, like talking to the people, to your loved ones, and those close to you, they could really snap you into reality. I'll do it for a person.
I'll
I
be
hope that
that person.
I hope people, I want people to do that for me as well. I've been given reality checks my whole life.
Mm. Yeah, I
Um,
also welcome them. I also welcome them. And I think that's very much the case with Neptune. It's really helpful to look outside yourself.
and check
It,
in.
right. It can be problematic though when you are having an intuitive feeling perhaps about a person,
And
talking to
everyone
them
around
about
you
it.
is like, no, they're a great guy, whatever. Like,
Exactly, exactly.
oh, I hate that. I mean, it hasn't happened in a while because I feel like I've just become so discerning now that I'm not around idiots. I hate to sound like mean, but you know,
It's a
I
good strategy in life. But, as we were saying earlier about Neptune, about grounding Neptune's energy, that's going to help a lot for you to distinguish intuition versus illusion. And I like to err on the side of that where Neptune is in my chart is where I might have more illusion. So, first of all, the awareness of that is really important. Like this could be an illusion. And then grounding that area of your life, working on different methods to perhaps not react, rather take time to reflect before responding,
Yeah.
particularly with that level, that area
I
of
think
life.
also I think also yeah, like journaling could be a good practice because when you write down what you're thinking, which whatever you're going through, whatever situation, and you read it,
Mm.
there's a different you interpret it differently when you're versus when you're just thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, this really happened. Oh my
And
God.
that's true
Like,
for everyone, but particularly for folks that have Neptune in the third house or any aspects to Neptune and Mercury.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
writing is really going to help you, if that's the case. But I
Um,
think that's true for everyone as well.
and one last thing I want to add about that is that like there's this big tendency, this big trend of like people going on like AI apps like ChatGPT and Gemini to ask, not so much Gemini, I guess more ChatGPT to ask like um use it as a therapist or to talk about their problems. And the problem with that is that AI always is going to confirm your belief. It's always like it's not, do you get what I mean? Like it's very strong on the confirmation bias.
Yeah. Very.
AI, so don't ask ChatGPT if you're delusional. Ask a person that you know, that you trust, that you actually like value their opinion,
And be open, right?
not
Don't
AI,
question
not for
someone.
this.
Yeah, don't question someone and then put the pressure to agree with you. Openly ask and openly receive. And then with that information, you can do with what you want. But people aren't going to be honest with you if you
If
put
you're
the pressure.
defensive.
Yeah, if you're defensive,
I
exactly.
yeah, like I can't deal with defensive people. I don't develop strong relationships, like, close relationships with those people because it's like when you're defensive, to me, it's like there's no desire to grow oftentimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, it's definitely indicative of you have many boundaries in the place of your growth that's stopping your growth.
I like
Yeah.
that. Many boundaries in the place of your growth.
Mm,
Amen to that.
look at us in church. But for sure, I do want to say that, oh, just left my brain. How very Neptunian of me. I was going to say something and it just left.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
It happens
Happens to me a
often.
lot.
Yep, it happens to me often. Um, you were talking about, oh yeah, defensive people, right? It's better with Neptune to lead with curiosity, right? And that's what happens when you realize, oh, I might have a problem with slight illusion of this part of my life, of this part of my personality, whatever it is, and lead with curiosity, I think, not defensiveness, as you said.
Yes.
Which dun, 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 leads us to our last planet that we're going to discuss today, which is I would very much associate you with Pluto, so I would love if you would kick us off and tell us a bit about your
You
interpretation.
associate me with Pluto.
Yeah, you're such a
I'd appreciate it
Scorpion.
if you told me why.
You're a scorpionic person. You're very Scorpio. You're very direct, and you've got the Pluto energy, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. I think there I can have a little bit of that, like forcing that discomfort onto some people. Like, sorry, not
And
sorry.
yourself, I think that you move through your own discomforts quite well, and you use it, transmute it, to something good.
Yeah, so Pluto has a lot of parallels like with Uranus, I would say. But it's different. Um, Uranus is like more evaluating, teach, forcing us to evaluate like and identify certain holes and gaps in where things need to be changed or restructured.
Mhm.
Um, but Pluto takes it to a new level. Pluto is about complete transformation. It's about tearing down those structures and rebuilding something else, probably that's completely different. Um, it is also associated with loss because loss is a huge part of transformation. You have to lose something to gain something else.
Mm.
That's the essence of transformation.
Hmm.
Um, and so wherever Pluto is in your chart, it could be where you do go through a lot of shifts and major changes and transformations. But it's also has to do, it's also a planet that rules power and power
Hmm.
dynamics
Control.
and control. And so it could also show where you, an area of life where you could gain a lot of power and authority and control and also lose all of it. So
Yeah.
that's that's my take of Pluto.
Absolutely. I mean, I would have said all those exact points. I would also add, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I would add that where Pluto is in your chart might be where you are being called to become more deeply connected. Um, so for example, if Pluto's in the 11th house,
I
you
have
might be
Pluto there.
same. That's why I'm saying it because we're kind of house twins in a sense, especially
Some
with
things.
generational planets, right? But yeah, Pluto in the 11th house to me is it's calling me to become closer with my communities, with my friends. And it hasn't always been the case, but I've always felt the call. And I think it's becomes progressively more important and like deepness in that area of your life becomes more profoundly important to like your identity, to your own birth, rebirth, and death and rebirth cycles throughout life.
Yeah,
Um,
it takes a while, I think, to get closer to mastering our Pluto placement, but I do feel like it's another thing that like post the Saturn return, it starts to, I think you start to see it more, you
mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think like it's such a, because I do feel like we have this sort of death and rebirth cycle throughout our lives. Some of us go through more subtle transformations, some of us go through more extreme transformations, more sudden transformations. I think a lot of that can be seen by our Pluto placement in our chart, among other things. Um, but yeah, I do think that that sort of transformation, it happens throughout our lifetime. And as we get older, I think all those transformations that's led us there helps us deeply connect with that part of our chart. So it's like every rebirth brings us closer to ourselves. So it does
because we
feel.
learn what we don't want, what doesn't serve us, what doesn't serve the collective. We
Mm-hmm.
learn through experience of
Yeah.
the lessons of Pluto, of often having to do with loss
Mm-hmm.
and gaining something else.
Yeah. I think similar to Neptune, it can also be an area where we do also receive a lot of that absorption. There's that magnetic energy to Pluto.
Yeah.
And I think it could indicate where we do not lack of boundaries. I don't think Pluto has an issue with that. I think it's more about emerging, merging of connect and souls, emerging of souls in connection, merging of creative projects,
And depth,
merging of,
depth,
yeah,
depth,
it's all about
with depth.
creating that depth in whatever area that it is. And I think because of that, there is this sense of like absorption into, whatever that house is. We did talk briefly about the 11th house because that's our placement. But for example, Pluto in the seventh house can indicate huge transformation within ourselves through our connections with others and our absorption and emergence with others throughout our lifetime being quite significant. Whereas the sixth house, it could even be as simple as merging with a pet. Maybe you have a profound relationship with a pet, or your daily life involves this sort of moving deeper within yourself or within whatever it is you're focused on. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Second house, for example, your value, your self-value, the things that you own, your money. There may be this difficulty in separation because you desire
Yeah.
emerging.
And
Yeah.
there, I think that I feel like Pluto in the second, it's like it can become really rich overnight, but can also lose everything overnight.
Hmm.
There's this volatility a little bit
Yeah.
with Pluto.
Hmm. Yeah.
That could be intimidating for some people.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said just kind of hits the nail on the head as well. Because with those changes, we have to trust they're for our best. And we have to know how to let go and detach when necessary so that we can move into that rebirth. Because death doesn't happen without letting go, you know?
No.
Yeah. Um, Also, I think Pluto can very much be connected with crisis. It might be where you might feel a sense of crisis or a sense of not chaotic like Uranus, but this sense of, um,
A turning point.
yeah, yeah, these
Like
big, profound turning points for sure. Yeah, Pluto is incredibly intense planet, but very cool, very cool. All right, so that kind of concludes the planets. I
planet.
did want to talk a little bit about some of the planetary transits happening in the near future. The first one is it has already passed after we were recording this because we were recording this on January 2nd. But January 1st, Mercury entered Capricorn, which is nice. I think Mercury in Capricorn invites a lot of practical thinking. We might be in a planning mode, creating structures, foundations, setting up and working on our goals, kind of fitting for January 1st.
Yeah, and I think right now, like Mars is in Capricorn, maybe Venus,
Venus is, I think, confirmed.
Mercury, Sun. There's like a Capricorn. Anyone born right now is going to be like a big Capricorn stellium. So good for them. But yeah, I think right now there's a lot of energy around initiation and starting new things, but starting things in a smarter, like working smarter. That's the whole motto of Capricorn, work smarter, not harder.
Hmm.
Um, Setting down, like laying down the groundwork for new projects.
Mm.
Um, if anyone has a business like we do, it's a good time to launch, I would say, to plan launches, to start new things, go paid on Substack, you know, something, something new and exciting. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think with Mercury, we may also be at the planning stage of that. So it might be a time where we're thinking our way into it, planning our next steps. But yeah, with all the other planets there, we're not far from kicking it off, you know. Usually, 1st of January is not something I would say is the new year. I feel like because it's winter, it's not the ideal time for our bodies to be moving. But with all this Capricorn energy, it's gonna happen.
yeah, I feel like December, I mean, I think both of us, right? There were a lot of planets transiting our 12th house in December, and I felt very tired. I
Mm,
felt very unmotivated. I really wanted to just take a step back, especially after like everything going on. Um, and but then once like the planets started moving into Capricorn in our first house, I felt like a jolt of energy. I don't know, of motivation, of confidence that I haven't felt in a little bit, honestly. And
mm.
I think I like it
Yeah. No, 12th house, when there's a lot of planets going on in the 12th house, it's not fun.
a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. It feels like kind of anxious, feels like can't really get going, but you wanna. It's
And you can't like access really what it is that's bothering you.
Or if you can, it's like these weird subconscious things that you haven't really dealt with since you were like a teenager or something. It's not very pleasant. But I would recommend checking out where Capricorn is in your chart right now, which house it's in. That's going to feel really activated right now. Um, but yeah, we do have some other transits coming up. The one happening in
Yeah, I
2026.
wanted to read. I'm so eager.
Yeah,
I
go for
wanted
it.
to talk about the upcoming Neptune in Aries
Mm,
transit.
mm-hmm,
It's a big one,
mm-hmm,
a big outer planet transit. Um, so Neptune is leaving Pisces and entering Aries on January 26th of this month. So in just a few weeks. And this is a big deal because this is going to be the last time that Neptune is in Pisces in our lifetime. That's it. It's over. Like,
Yeah.
um,
But I'm
and
good with that because I have
I'm
such
very
Pisces.
good. I'm very good with that. And so I think on the collective scale, what this means, the way I interpret it personally, is we've been kind of been with Neptune in Pisces, we've been living in this like very dreamlike state, like we've been on the brink of waking up as a society. And I think with all this new age spirituality and all this this kind of astrology and human design and all of these practices becoming mainstream, I feel like we thought we kind of had all the answers, and we put a lot of trust into gurus and all these people, all these spiritual influencers. Not to knock them. There's good there in any space. There's going to be great people and bad people, but I think now, on a societal level, there's going to be a big erosion of trust. Um,
Mm,
I think there's going to be an erosion of trust. I think truth will be revealed in our society and politics. More and more things are going to start to come out that are going to, I think, anger the population. Um, but when it comes to individually, I think more there's going to be more of a development of like self-awareness and trust in ourselves because Aries does rule the self,
mm,
and kind of the a bit of uh understanding our tendencies around self-deception,
mm.
and self-reliance and stuff like that.
I
Um,
I think we also might encounter certain acts of over impulsivity based on illusions. You might see some like out of pocket behavior out in them streets. You know, people
oh
acting.
God, that's the last thing we need. I feel like people are already have lost their mind.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a little bit of a sense of boldness in the way people respond and react to things based on illusion, based on things
It's
they
gonna
already
be,
know.
and also I feel like it's gonna be like less like idealism and more like by all means necessary.
Yes, but
You
also,
know what I mean? You know what
yeah,
I mean?
but the other side of that, and I do want to say this to everyone, I don't know if I'm right, but I feel like conspiracy theories, speculation, I think it's going to be like off the chart.
Yeah, yeah, because of the erosion of trust and that
Yeah.
skepticism
So I
and
want to tell everybody, I think all our many, many listeners, I want to tell them that, something that Dave Chappelle said actually on his recent comedy special was like, we all know something's wrong. We all know we don't trust the government, or we all know that things are going wrong in the world. It's best not to act like we know. It's best to say we don't know when we don't know. And I think that is a big theme of Neptune and Aries as well. Yeah.
yeah, wow, it's powerful, but
Yeah.
also accurate.
Don't act like you know, but also, like you said, this pursuit of truth is important, and we definitely need it in our society. So a lot will be uncovered, but a lot also won't be known. And we have to be comfortable with not knowing what it is, but knowing that something's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. There's the other, I think, transit that you wanted to chat about was Saturn, right? Entering.
Yeah, Saturn is also going to leave Pisces and enter Aries. So there's going to be a lot of Aries energy, guys. Like Chiron is in Aries
Mm.
already, I believe. Um, Saturn is entering Aries, Neptune is entering Aries. Scary Aries.
Yeah,
A
I think
little
there's
bit.
going to be a breakdown of ego, in a greater sense to the collective.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see more impatience. Um a greater desire for like instant gratification. Um, Kind of like balancing intentionality versus impulsiveness is going to be a big one. And Saturn is in fall in Aries. Saturn is not comfortable in this sign because Saturn likes to take its time, likes to be careful and prudent and methodical, and Aries is a cardinal fire sign. and it
Yeah.
like to um take action and could be very impulsive and very bold and maybe could misstep and miscalculate a lot. Um, so I feel like it's going to teach us a lot. I think we're going to see a lot of things backfiring,
Mm,
if you know what I mean.
mm. Yeah,
I
fire
guess
being the operative word. I mean, genuinely, for all of those who have their natal Saturn in Pisces, congratulations, you survived your Saturn
Saturn
return.
return.
Now it's time to rebuild everything that's just been broken down, which is also a process, but a lot more comfortable, I would say. But if you have Saturn in Aries, you're about to start your Saturn return, and Saturn return in Aries, I think, is quite a tough one. I think prepare to have your ego challenged. Prepare. We should actually do an episode on Saturn return and all of those going through their Aries Saturn return now. Um, but yeah, bottom line is there's going to be a lot of wanting to do things and being held back. So I imagine a lot of like collective frustration, particularly in that generation. Um, if you're like between 27 and 31, you're probably most likely about to go through this transit, for anybody wondering. So yeah, it can be quite frustrating, I think, to want to go, to have your foot on the gas and no gas in the gas tank. So I guess we can just kind of conclude this episode, part two of the planets, by saying that your planets in your chart are your teachers, they're your mentors. You can have a look at them, check out where they are, what modality, what element. They're all going to give you clues into what can be worked on, what can be utilized for your greater good and for your connections, for your achievements and success. Yeah.
Yeah, and as always, if you have any questions about this stuff,
Hmm.
you can always, send us an email. We have our all of our contact info always is linked down. Um, yeah, subscribe, share this with your friends. It can help a lot of people. We just really want to help people through astrology and help them understand themselves on a very deep level. So,
Just like we've done for ourselves and each other. It's such a powerful tool. So, absolutely, contact us, send us a comment, let us know what planets feel loudest in your chart, which planets you relate to, which planets you love, which planets you hate. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, thank you very much.
thanks.
Thank you for listening to Moon Me, an astrology podcast. We hope our insights inspire you to explore your own path. Join us next week as we dive deeper into the cosmos with Roxy and Izzy.